Over the weekend, I saw headlines about how Taylor Swift apparently loves teaching men how to apologize. And that got me thinking about a lesson that I learned about apologies, which is the four-parter. Hey everybody, welcome back to WizNugs. Today, we're talking about apologies. First, I want to say just a word or two about how not to apologize and what makes an awful apology.
Okay, so what's your example?
We've heard some of these of I'm sorry you feel that way.
Yeah.
I'm sorry that you are offended.
I'm sorry that you took that wrong.
I'm sorry if I hurt your feelings. If you... No. Take it out. Take all that out of here. So, in a nutshell, the four parts are, I'm sorry for this specific thing.
And actually enumerate what the thing was.
Yes. Well, I want to get some examples going in a minute. But
Okay.
For the step one, I'm sorry for.
Okay.
And then you detail, be specific. Second part, this was wrong because. Show that you know why you're apologizing. Here's the thing. Here's why that wasn't a good thing. Part three, I will try to do better next time by doing this differently.
Okay.
And part four, will you please forgive me?
Yeah.
So by putting it this way, by summing these things up in this way, you're saying, I know the thing that I did that we're talking about. A blanket, sorry, whatever it is that you're mad about, I'm sorry, okay? Sometimes we don't know, right? And if the other person is holding a grudge that you don't know, you really don't know what you did wrong, that conversation needs to happen separately. That's a different thing.
And I would almost say that it would need to happen first. Because honestly, if you're going to genuinely apologize for a thing that you did, you need to be cognizant of it at first. And maybe it was something that was inadvertent and you didn't mean to do it, but you did do it. And so you communicate with your partner or child or whoever it is that you're having to do the apology with. And you find out, okay, what happened and what are you upset about? They communicate to you, and don't start defending yourself or in that nature at the bat. You're trying to find out exactly what the problem is. So this is a good time to be the listening guy or the listening person and hear what they have to say. And once they've enumerated what the issue is, and then you can stop, reflect, and at that point in time, if an apology is due, right? Because I don't want to necessarily say because somebody is upset that you automatically have to apologize.
Well, see, that's where I think there's room to think differently about how we communicate.
Sure.
So this is one of those things of if somebody's offended by something that you said, even if the thing that you said was true and was accurate and is maybe even a good thing to have said, but somebody's offended by it, that doesn't necessarily mean that you say, well, I'm sorry that you were offended that I said, no, not I'm sorry that you, right? Staying on your side of the net.
Sure.
That tennis court analogy keeps coming back because it's so meaningful. But to be able to say, especially, let's say this is your marriage, for example. This is a person that you're with that you want to be with, that you love and respect and honor and cherish and all these things, right? If you've had an argument, things get heated.
Sure.
You're saying things, maybe things that are true, maybe things that you mean, but you're saying them in a way that is said in anger. It's not said in a constructive way. It's said because you got the daggers out. And maybe you're defending yourself because your spouse has the daggers out. Right? These things happen. We get emotions run high sometimes.
Sure.
To reflect on your own part in that argument and to come back to this and say, wait a minute. I remember that my wife she's my bride. She's the woman that I love. She's the one that out of all the people in this world, she's the one that I chose to be with me.
Right.
You don't get to choose your parents. You're just born to them. You don't really get to choose your kids. They just come and they are what they are. And you get to pick your friends. And most of all, you pick your spouse.
Right.
And you're saying to them, I want to be with you all the time. Well, let's keep that in mind in this situation. Okay, yeah, tempers ran high. But now to be able to say after the fact, I'm sorry. I spoke to you in a disrespectful way. My temper was running high, and I let it get the best of me.
So in this scenario, I would say yes, it's important for you to be able to hear your spouse, hear what they have to say, hear their point of view, and then reflect on what you said and be like, and have that internal monologue saying, I probably, even if I feel it was right, even if I feel that I was saying something that I found factual, it could have been presented in another way. And I've used that before. It's good information presented in the wrong way.
As Adam Carolla says, good prescription, bad frames.
And it happens a lot.
So just to go through the example with this example in mind of the four parts.
Yeah.
The first part would be, I'm sorry for the way that I spoke to you. I love you and you deserve better. Part 2 is, that was wrong because you deserve to be treated with respect. My temper was running high and I let it get the best of me. Mm-hmm. I will try to do better next time by remembering that at all times. And stopping and taking a break if I need to. If my temper is getting too high, to say, I need to give myself a timeout so I can cool down and we can come to this argument, come back to this disagreement with more rational head. Will you please forgive me? In that example, you're not accepting culpability for everything in the whole world. You're not saying, I was wrong to have said those things, but you can take the self-awareness of, the way that I said it, the way that I presented it wasn't good.
Right.
And I was disrespectful, and I'm sorry for that.
Yeah.
And you don't need to say, don't you have something to say now?
Well, yeah, no.
Right? There needs to be absolutely no expectation of reciprocation.
Right. If you think there's going to be a tit for tat kind of scenario, like, okay, now it's your turn, then you're going about it with the wrong mindset. I just want to say in this scenario, your partner, spouse, or significant other, whoever it is, has indicated that after an argument or during an argument, the treatment that they received not made them. They felt a way after a thing was said or done. They now had the chance to explain themselves, and in retrospect, you realize, yeah, I shouldn't have done that. Now let me frame up this apology in the way that it needs to be done. There are going to be certain situations, however, where you do say things to somebody and they get offended, and you can't help that, right?
Sure.
Only thing I'm adding to this, the only caveat is there are going to be situations where you're going to say a thing or do a thing, and someone's going to get upset about it or have a reaction to it, but you're not responsible for that reaction if it's innocuous enough. If you did something intentional, that's a different story. But I want to try to keep this in the focus of, you realize that you've made a mistake, you did something that was hurtful or harmful, and now you are coming to the apology part and you're trying to frame it up correctly.
And I think this also applies to teaching. I came across this as parenting. This was teaching your kids how to apologize properly. Because how many times do we see parents and kids, especially if it's their siblings, you go say you're sorry. Sorry.
Yeah, and you know they didn't mean it.
Now hug each other.
Yeah.
It doesn't fix anything.
Right.
It's fake and false. And how many apologies do we see on TV of celebrities saying, I would like to express regret for the hurtful things that I said and did, and to the people who were hurt by them, and I'm sorry. And it's so hollow. And even just the idea of like an expression of regret, it's like, okay, do you regret that you did it, or do you regret that you got caught?
It needs to be genuine. And if you're forcing your children to have these moments of forced apologies, and they have no true meaning, and they really don't mean it,
and you can tell that it's fake, and the person being apologized to can tell that it's fake,
then what's the purpose? If only that you think I'm keeping the peace? Not really.
It's a performance of, well, we recognize that apology is a good thing when it's real.
When it's heartfelt.
When it's genuine.
Yeah.
But to push someone into it isn't really helpful. And to apologize when you don't really mean it or don't really feel it is also, the word is disingenuous, right? It's fake, and it comes off as fake or manipulative at worst.
Right.
And so that's where remembering these 4-part apologies, and also, like, I'd like to point out that when this whole thing comes comes to it, you're really talking about repairing something with somebody that you care about.
And isn't it worth it? I mean, the arguments are going to be fleeting, and your emotions that you felt at the time are just that specific point in time. So is it worth it to stay mad? Is it worth it to, like, oh, I'm not going to apologize because I was in the right?
And to recognize that even if you, okay, let's take that as the example.
Sure.
Even if you are completely 100% right and your spouse is completely 100% wrong, and you find out later, whether it was you're arguing about a fact or something that's verifiable, and you find out, you look it up later and you find out that you're completely right. Do you come to them with gloating, or do you come to them with, well, aren't you going to apologize now? Because, or if for the sake of like remembering that the relationship is important to you, to be able to say, I'm sorry for my part in this.
Right.
Even if the whole concept of the argument isn't resolved.
Right.
If it's still festering and it's still a problem, you can say, look, we're going to revisit that topic later, and I'd like to do so respectfully. But I want to clear the air here and say I'm sorry for my part in the way things broke down.
And I would even add on to that. If you find out that you're right, don't go, see, I told you I was right. Now what? What are you going to say about it now? Don't do that. I would say, if you find out that you're right and you know that you're right and spouse is wrong, you just drop it and you let it go. Let them come to the information on their own. And if they decide to come to you, whether it's the next day, the next week, 5 years from now, whenever that is, and they say, you remember that argument we had? Oh, honestly, honey, I don't remember most of these arguments. And because, they're just in the moment. And they can come back to say, it turns out you're right. You're right about this particular thing. And you can be humble and be genuine and be like, I realized we had an argument about it, and we got heated about it. But in the end, I want to be with you, and our happiness is more important than me being right or you being right.
And so you mentioned like two things there that I think are such awesome points that are worth fleshing out a little bit more. And one of them is, remember, feelings aren't forever.
Yes.
Right? I'm pretty sure we've done a whole episode on that before.
Right.
But the concept is so strong that, okay, in that moment when you're having the argument, this feels really strong and this feels like the most important thing in the world because we're arguing about it. And if we're arguing about it, it must be important.
Right.
If I feel emotionally intensely about it, it must be important. No.
Right.
Because the next day, the next week, the next month, are you even going to remember what you were so intense about?
Yeah, and emotions are the amplifier. And how you feel about a particular thing, you be like, you know what? I really don't care for diet soda. It's okay. I don't want cider. And then your wife goes to the store, your spouse goes to the store, and then they bring in and they fill the entirety of their diet soda. And the first thing you see is like, I thought I told you I can't say it. But that's not how you truly feel about it. You're just in the moment. Really, your normal attitude is like, diet soda.
Another example. Recently, my wife made dinner.
Okay.
And we've been kind of talking about, okay, maybe we should start cooking more at home, save some money.
Yeah.
And so she planned this meal, barbecue chicken, homemade potato salad. It's like, oh, so good. So good. In this particular instance, we were using red potatoes this time. We don't normally use red potatoes. Recipe said red would be good for potato salad. I don't know.
Yeah.
They were a little undercooked.
Okay.
So the first bite that I took was like, this is crunchy, and I don't think potatoes are supposed to be crunchy.
Like the raw crunchy.
And
right?
so the first thing not totally raw.
Okay.
Edible still, but like, I don't want my potatoes to have this texture.
Yeah. Al dente isn't a word you use for potatoes, but yes.
A little more like an apple.
Sure.
And so the first thing out of my mouth as I took a bite of this meal that my wife prepared was, the potatoes are underdone. This is crunchy. And she said, oh, okay. Oh, that sucks. And in that moment, I thought that was done. Because to me, I was like, oh, the chicken's great.
Yeah.
The potato salad, I don't know if I can eat this.
I partook of the chicken. It was delicious.
What a bummer. In that moment, I was just thinking of, okay, constructive criticism. Let's just get through this. Hey, the thing that I completely forgot to say in that moment was, thank you so much for your effort.
Important information presented in the wrong way. Another possible could have been like, hey, can you taste this for me? What do you think? and gotten their opinion on it. And then you could say, well, to me, it just seems a little bit crunchy. Or they could say, you know what, God, it's kind of crunchy. Okay, well, I'm still going to eat it. It's still good. It still tastes good.
3, 4, 5 days later, I'm talking to my wife and she's been a little distant, and I go, okay, something's wrong. What's wrong? I don't know what's wrong. I'm starting to get, what do I do? You know, and it's that moment of I don't know what I did. I don't know what to apologize for. And ultimately she spills the beans of what's going on. And I'm like, oh my goodness, you're absolutely right. That was a really rude thing of me to do.
Even though you didn't think it was rude at the time.
There was nothing false about what I said.
Right.
And by that time, she also admitted, yeah, I was just mad that the potato salad didn't work out because I wasn't paying attention to the potatoes in the same way that I normally would. It's a new recipe. We're trying. It's that moment of I'm not feeling good about what I did. And so to be called out on the one thing that I was already not feeling good about was extra. I'm already beating myself up for it, feeling bad about it.
Right.
It was fuel on the fire and I don't need that. And it's that question in that moment, did I say anything wrong? No. But was it kind? Absolutely not.
Sure.
Was it the right thing to say? I think I've learned absolutely not.
Now, on the other side of the coin of this particular scenario, it's helpful if you're the one that feel that you were wronged or accosted in some cases, that you take the moment to get over the initial emotional response that you're going to have. Wait until the time that you're like, okay, I'm good. Hopefully it's a few minutes. Maybe it's a little bit longer. And then you go and you talk to the person and say, hey, you know what? I know you didn't mean anything by this. I know you didn't mean to offend me or make me feel bad.
Well, this is When I Feel.
Yeah.
Go back and watch the video.
Yeah.
It's a good one.
But when you said the potatoes were crunchy, I felt like a loser. I felt ashamed because I didn't do a good job for you and my family. But you got to be able to communicate this. I mean, to sit and stew on it for a number of days wasn't helpful. So we want harmony. Hopefully all sides want harmony. So if you're the person who was offended and feel that you need to have the apology done because something happened, as innocuous as it was, make sure you communicate that. Don't hold on to it and let it build and build and build and build.
I've heard Jordan Peterson say, conflict avoided is conflict multiplied.
Right.
That when we squash it down, when we just, no, I'm not going to talk, that doesn't make it go away. And if you have feelings of resentment or regret or problem about a given interaction, if this is someone who is important to you, a family member or spouse especially, don't let it fester.
Right.
But stay on your side of the net and try to discuss it gracefully and peacefully.
Yeah.
So when you do this thing, I feel this way. Own yourself, own your feelings, recognize that it's not the other person's job to make you feel a certain way.
Right.
And if you're going to express it, then you just express it that way. And whether there's conflict, whether the person apologizes or doesn't, that's not your part anymore.
Correct. All you can do is present them with the ball and wait to see how they handle it at that point in time.
So whether you're a Taylor Swift fan or not, now you know the 4-part apology structure. I'm sorry for the thing that I did. Be specific. It was wrong because I will try to do better next time by doing this differently. Will you please forgive me?
And be genuine about it. Make sure that you've actually reflected on it and had a little bit of humility. Thanks again for joining us on WizNugs, and we'll see you the next time.
Thanks for joining us today on WizNugs. If you liked what you heard, spread the word. For more information, head over to mywiznugs.com.